In the Parsha Vayigash, the Torah describes the dramatic reunion that took place between Yaakov and Yosef. After Yosef had identified himself to his brothers and suggested to them that during this period of famine, it would be worth their while to come to Egypt and Yosef would provide for them. The Torah indicates to us that Yehuda was sent as a kind of advance party. Lahoros lefonav Goshna, vayavo atza Goshen. Rashi, Chazal comment that the idea was to establish a yeshiva before they would come down to Mitzrayim, because clearly in a vacuum, without any spiritual sustenance, they would not be able to survive. So the oasis in the desert, of course, is a yeshiva. Ein mayim ala Torah. The Gemara says in Tainis, Hay kol tzamei l'chula mayim. All those who are thirsty, let them come and slake their thirst. Let them drink from the fountain of Torah, the Be'er Mayim Chayim. The Torah then goes on to tell us that Yosef himself harnessed his chariot, Zviz Magdim L'mitzvos, and certainly a very tearful and dramatic reunion between Yosef and his father. Yosef then suggests to his family, let me go and tell Paro that you have arrived. And the Torah tells us then the following pasuk: what were they in terms of their livelihood? They were grazing flock. They were individuals who essentially were shepherds. So if Paro, said Yosef to them, will ask you, Mama Asechem, what is the nature of your panasa? V'amartem, you'll respond, Anshe mikneh hayu avodecha minureinu v'yarata gam anachnu gam avosenu. The Torah here underscores the fact that this particular profession, namely shepherding flocks, was one that was apparently a kind of masora in Klal Yisrael, not just the brothers of Yosef, but rather gam avosenu. We're talking about the Avos HaKdoshim, Avosenu HaKdoshim also had a similar kind of profession. And the Torah then provides the reason. Ba'abur Teshu B'Eretz Goshen, so they would not be subjected, they would not have to be compelled to live in Mitzrayim, Kisoavis Mitzrayim Kol Roitzon. And then Yosef informs Paro, Aviv Achai, Bitzonu Uvkaram V'chalashem, Bo Me'eretz Kinah, Binyam Me'eretz Goshen. And when Paro asked them, Mama Asechem, as Yosef had foretold, Vayomru El Paro Roitzon Avodecha, Gam Anachnu, Gam Avosenu. Why does the Torah spend so much time stressing this particular factor, namely the livelihood of the Avos HaKdoshim? Rabbeinu Bechaye, in one of his most beautiful Perushim ala Torah, a number of times, in the beginning of Parshas, again of Vayigash, a third time in the beginning of Parshas Yisro, when the Torah describes, actually the beginning of Shemos, when the Torah describes Moshe HaYaroeh Son Yisro Chosna Kohen Midyan. Moshe Rabbeinu was also a roed son. Why this particular profession? Comments Rabbeinu Bechaye the following: Umashe Bacharu Hashvatim Ha'umnis Hazos VeHumnis Avoseim. Why did they choose this profession? Neshnei Dvarim. One, because it provides a good panasa. That's certainly a very fundamental reason why people choose different livelihoods. Sheish Revach Godol Begiza, Bevlados, Bechalav, Behu Umnus Sheino Tzricha Yigia Rabba B'Tach Godol. But beyond that, says Rabbeinu Bechaye, something which is incredibly striking. You will find, he says, V'chein Timtza, Rov HaTzadikim HaNeviim Hayu Roim. Most of the great tzadikim in the days of Tanakh were shepherds. He begins by describing Hevel, Vayev Roed Tzon. Moshe Rabbeinu, as I mentioned, Moshe Eroah Tzon Yisro Chosna Kohen Midyan. Shmuel HaNavi is a Roed Tzon. Shaul HaMelech, David HaMelech, all of them are shepherds. Vatam, Kedei Sheyisrachu Min HaYishuv. The idea was that one should be, shall we say, living in isolation, not total isolation, of course, but rather isolated from all types of teeming areas, teeming with humanity. When a person is in an area that is teeming with humanity, often that could be a source of Rahman al-Islam, all types of transgression. And he refers specifically to Bechilus, Lashon Hara, Shua Sheker, Gila Arayas, Gezel, Hamas, B'chol Masher Adam Porish Mecheres Habrios, Unimla Ben Averos. If a person is going to try to put himself in a situation where, to a large extent, he'll be away from the teeming masses, this way he'll avoid a lot of societal ills, avoid a lot of the areas that plague society. V'chol mashu misrachik min ha'yishuv, hu misrachik min ha'avon, u'min ha'gezel, u'min ha'chomas, u'shar ha'averos. And he goes further, that a person who's able to somehow provide himself with a livelihood, but at the same time do so in a context which is sort of somewhat sequestered, that person will be able to be misboded, and even perhaps as a result of his bodedus be zoche linevua. Ve'ein odam roeh shom davar shiyatvin machshavto min ha'machshava b'Hashem yisbarach. Because ultimately, a person should be preoccupied with one major issue, and that is, how do I come close to Hashem yisbarach? How do I be dovuk in Hashem yisbarach? Ukvar yodates rabbeinu b'chaye ki midolei hanavim hoyu misrachkim u'porshim min ha'yishuv u'misbodedim b'midbar. Afilu below mireh. We have Eliyahu Hanavi, Elisha Hanavi, and others as well. Yotzim el midbaros manichim ha'ashkocha b'inyanei haguf lizbodei b'lios machshavtam dveika b'Hashem yisbarach. So I believe this is a tremendous lesson that one has to attempt to apply in one's own life. Of course, one has to interact with others. Of course, one has to be part of society, unquestionably. But the Netziv is a famous tshuva. In Meshe Davar, we also discuss this phenomenon, this yisod, to the extent that a person is able to be misbodei, to find quiet time, private time, or shall we say, ensconce himself in an area where you don't have the teeming masses. Chazal say, have the gola the Makom Torah. Why? Why should one go into a Makom Torah, into Golos in a Makom Torah? Because there you'll be able to, number one, devote yourself to the study of Torah, but number two, you'll be in a context, an environment, in an environment where the values and the midos are those that reflect individuals who are seeking to connect with Hashem Yisbarach. That's a very significant lesson that all of us have to try our best to adopt if we possibly can, namely, choose a profession that will obviously provide one with a good livelihood, with a good parnasa, unquestionably. That's a chiyuv that a person has to provide parnasa for one's family, but at the same time try to choose a parnasa where one's involvement, entanglements with all types of different elements of society, especially the nether elements, will be limited. And this way one won't be able to protect oneself and put oneself in a context where one's attempt to be dovek and Hashem Yisbarach will be heightened and accentuated. Alavai, we should be zocheh to find such a profession, not a simple matter, clearly challenging and formidable task, even gargantuan in some respects, but if that is the goal and the kibun of an individual, won't be zocheh to that parnasa, and also an ability to be misbodei and connect with Hashem Yisbarach and constantly continue to grow le'ilu le'ilu.